Wow, today is Daniel chapter 3. Say it with me, trial by fire. Say, I have gone through trial by fire. See, fire does two things. It consumes those that throw you into the furnace.
Yes.
And purifies you while you're in the furnace.
That's right.
Do you know they went in bound? The only thing the fire touched was the ropes on their hands. Is that awesome? They didn't even smell like fire when they came out. So I believe that we're living in a season where the church is being tried by fire. See, water was the main thing that destroyed the earth in Genesis chapter 6 with the flood. Now, God gave a promise. I particularly think that the firmament was so thick above the earth in the original creation that the firmament watered the earth. That the rainbow couldn't appear, it was so thick. I believe it protected animals and man on the earth from the rays of the sun. That's why there was long life. That's just one of my theories. I don't know what Gordon thinks about this. But when that firmament dissolved, because the flood did not just include the earth opening up, it included that firmament dissolving over the earth. And that's what failed. That's why we can't have a flood today, a universal flood. There's not enough firmament above the earth for a universal flood. So what God is going to use at the end of this age is fire. If you read through Revelation, the angels are all releasing fire upon the earth. 1/3 of all the plants are destroyed just in one fire alone. It was interesting to me last year that the name of that city that burned down in Northern California, it was called Middleton. Middleton, isn't that interesting? California's had nothing but fires. Fires are beginning to consume the earth. We're seeing a lot of that. Of course, during Revelation, we're going to see a fire from volcanoes. We're going to see a lot of volcanic activity on the earth because the earth is getting disturbed right now. You know the Inuit Indians, we watched a video on that this last week. The Inuit Indians, which live which are Eskimos in the very northern tribes up in the Antarctic, said that the sun has begun to set differently than it has. There's been a polar shift of the earth just in the last, let's say, 2 years. They read the stars. You know, these hunters, when they go out, because in the north, it's dark a lot of the year. There are times of the year the sun never goes down up there. The other times that it's dark throughout the whole day. So they learn to read the stars. And these Inuit Indians say that from the place where they live, the village where they live, the sun has moved over 2 mountains from where it used to set. Same season, same time of the year exactly. I believe the polar shift of the earth has created the climate change that we have. That's just my feeling. I believe that polar shift has shifted enough, and I think that could be influenced by planetary alignments right now that are causing a gravitational pull on the earth. Well, we're going to see a lot of these kind of things. I did a thing a couple of weeks ago on the signs in the heavens. The fulfillment of Revelation 12:1 is going to happen next year on the 23rd of September, where Jupiter is going to pass through the birth canal of Virgo. And by the way, Jupiter goes into the womb of Virgo for 9.5 months. That rarely happens, if it happens at all in past. And the only alignment of the stars that we see, and I can show you that video again if you want afterward, the only alignment of the stars that fulfill Revelation 12:1 happens next year, September 23rd, 2017. Now, there's a big debate on what Virgo represents. I believe it represents Israel. I think that birth represents something that happens in Israel. It could be the acknowledgement that they're going to be awakened. I don't know exactly what it is, but we know that we live in significant times. We live in very significant times. Now, Daniel chapter 3 is exciting because, look at this. Daniel chapter 3 represents people of great influence in Babylon. In Babylon, that affect the nation. I believe God is right now strategically placing in Babylon key people, just like he did Daniel, Shadrack, Meshach, and Abendnego. Now, they were captives. We looked at what happened in Daniel 1 and 2. What did we find in Daniel chapter 1? Let's review a moment, see how we're doing here, okay? What happened in Daniel 1? They were brought, what, from Jerusalem. Jerusalem was seized by Nebuchadnezzar, whose father had died. He was the captain, really the army of the Assyrians, and then he became king. So Nebuchadnezzar was an interesting character. He later got converted. We're going to see Nebuchadnezzar in heaven. Think about that. He was possibly the greatest king that ever lived on this earth outside of Jesus Christ. In the image, he was the head of gold. Rarely has a kingdom dominated the entire earth like the Babylonian kingdom. Now, the earth, remember, was not as populated as it is today. So Nebuchadnezzar represents truly a worldwide kingdom under Nebuchadnezzar. Now, next week, we're going to find out Nebuchadnezzar's journey into the grass fields. God humbled him. How many know God can humble you? How many know in America God is getting ready to humble some people? There's something getting ready to happen in America. There are going to be some people humbled. You can raise yourself up. You see, Daniel had gone in and prophesied over and interpreted the dream of Nebuchadnezzar, said, "O King Nebuchadnezzar, thou art the head of gold." You know what happened to Nebuchadnezzar? Went to his head. So the next thing you find, see, here's the big contest. The contest was between the Chaldeans and the children of Israel, the four children of Israel. There's a big contest going. Because of all the favor, say favor. God gave favor. Chapter 1 of Daniel, God gave favor to Daniel and his three friends. And so the king made them heads of providences all over the world. And they became heads, governors. They became head leaders, government people. Here are these Jewish guys taken out of captivity are beating all the local Chaldeans. They're jealous. How many know jealousy can be a terrible thing in government? And so what they did is they set them up, repeatedly kept setting up these Jewish four guys. Daniel and Shadrack and Meshech and Abendnego. They were doing everything they could to take them down. How many know that when God promotes you, nobody can take you down? That's right. And you know the thing that promoted these four men was integrity. It says they purposed in their heart that they would what? Not defile themselves with the king's meat. So their names were changed, their clothing was changed, their diet was changed. Everything about these guys was changed. But you know the thing you couldn't change? Their heart. Their heart was not changed. They purposed in their heart. See, once you make a decision with your heart, the world cannot affect you. They can raise up their image, as we're going to see the Antichrist is going to do, but you've already made your what? Choice, right? Yeah. You've already purposed in your. So whatever the enemy may try to throw at you, there what? How many options do you have? Only one. To what? To go with Jesus. So what we need to do in this day is purpose in our heart. So when all these pressures come to us, we don't bow down. Believe me, the world wants you to bow down. The agenda of the Babylonian system at the end of this age is to make you bow down. I said it last week. They'll do it through the mark of the beast. Could be a short time before we won't be able to buy and sell in the regular marketplace. Now, I told you a couple of weeks ago when I taught on the signs of the times. Revelation teaches there are three responses of the saints during Revelation. If you take the sword, you're going to die by the sword. So if you've armed yourself with tons of guns and ammunition, you're going to get killed. Because you're not going to be able to withstand the armies of the enemy. Now I've got, my son lives up in Alaska and he's got, I think, 16 guns and automatic. He thinks like an Alaskan. He's got an armory. He said, "Dad, I'd be able to hold off the U.S. government at least for a few days." I said, "Well, John, I just told him, and he's an outdoorsman, and he uses them for hunting and all, but I said, you really need an automatic Army rifle. You know, what's going to happen? I mean, he's a very peace-loving guy, like his dad, right? But he said, nobody's going to take my house. I said, well, you know, just think about it. So the first group is those that live by the sword will die by the sword. So there'll be a lot of people killed by the armies at the end of the age that carry the weapons, that try to defend themselves. The second group are those that aren't prepared at all. They're going to be carried off to camps, it says in Revelation. They're going to be taken captive. They're going to die in captivity because they're what? Let's use a word out of Donald Trump's language here. They're stupid. They're just plain stupid. They just said, no, I don't need to prepare. I don't need to get ready. You know, God will take care of me. Everything's cool. You know, and I'm just going to kind of hang back. And they have about enough in their house for 2 meals. That's another group. Well, the third group, guess what? Those that are prepared. And they're going to go through the fire, they're going to go through the tribulation, they're going to go through, and you know what? They're going to be a witness. Now, I've got a feeling, we talked a few minutes before, Gordon and I and Michael, about how much time we have left. And here's, this is not prophetic. This is one man's opinion from a lot of study recently. I believe we have about 4 to 5 years left to prepare. Why do you say that, Jerry? Because Jesus said in Luke 21 and Matthew 24, there was only one sign for his return. You know what that is? When this gospel of the kingdom is preached in all the world unto all ethnos, dialects, then shall the end come. So Wycliffe, I believe, has more authority about the end times than NBC News, ABC News, CNN, and all of them combined. Wycliffe just announced with a new software called MASK, M-A-S-K, that they will complete the translation of all dialects by 2020, at latest 2021. Now, if I understand Matthew 24 and Luke 21, that's an announcement to me that the end is near. The end is near. How it all fits together in the tribulation, pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib, you work that out. I got my feeling on this. Pat and I agree, don't we agree? We agree pretty clearly. We sit and talk about it once in a while. The church is going to go through the tribulation because it's the greatest time of harvest. I want to be here. I want to be here for the greatest harvest. Man, Action Evangelism has been getting ready for this 53 years. I've been in ministry. 74 this last week. Happy birthday to me. Yeah, I got a cake out there, and it's also Christina's cake. So, you know, hey, I'm 74. I've been at this a long time, and we've been waiting for a great harvest on the earth. So listen, don't get discouraged. The best is yet to come. I'm getting worked up this morning, Gordon. This is our time. Say it with me. This is our time. And to do this, we're going to need wealth. Yes. To take the nations, we're going to need wealth to do this. And that's why God's going to be raising up kingdom businesses. Whether it's, and you got to get into big business. You mentioned it before, Gordon. What are some of the big businesses in America that can make a lot of money? What's one?
Sorry?
Some of the things that can make a lot of money. Businesses. You mentioned some. Aviation, energy.
Aviation, energy, water.
Water is another one. Boy, God, I was sitting in my office in Cameron Park in 1988. And God gave me a word back in 1988 and said that the treasure at the end of the age would be water. Worth more than gold. You know, water right now, you are paying more for your bottle of water than you are your gasoline.
Yeah.
Already. Water is going to be the resource of the world. Well, what's going to happen to the church? Hey, we're going to smart up and learn how to manage what's here, whether it comes out of the sea. Because the office next to me was a genius. This guy was a genius. I don't know whatever happened to him. I tried to, and I bought a lot of stock in his company at the time. I was making pretty good money selling aircraft, whatnot. And I bought stock in his company because he had invented a way in a vacuum-sealed chamber, such as something about the size of a container, if you know what a metal container is that go on ships, about the size of that. he could get the water that exits out of the generators of cities that goes back out to the sea, and he could distill water at such a low temperature in a vacuum. He invented this whole system that he could literally produce enough water for a whole city by just the exit water out of the power generators. See, there's creative ways that God is showing Christians on how to get water and energy at the end of this age. We're not going to be subject to the Babylonian system. Right. Amen? God's going to make a way for us to go through the fire. And you know what's so beautiful about going through the fire? You always come out better on the other end. You do. You come out stronger. We're going to see what happened at the end of the book of Daniel today in chapter 3. You're going to like this. First of all, let's, everybody's phone, okay. Let's look at this. First of all, the glory of man. Put down there the glory of man. See, man thinks they're the image of gold. They think they're the head of gold. Today, they think money rules the world. What do they always say? Follow the what? The money. I say follow the king. It's in the hands of the Lord to give what? Riches and honor. Could you get me a drink of water? For some reason, my poor mouth really dried up. It's in the hands of the Lord to give riches and honor. So get ready. Get ready to be blessed. The worse it gets out there, the better it's going to get for me. Because Creator God gives solutions. But He says He's the solver of solutions, you guys. You're the solver. You're a solution man. You can go into a company and figure a solution out, right, buddy? God's gifted you for that. I tell you, God has given wisdom. Thank you very much. I love water, especially good water. Where do I put this here? All right. So first of all, the glory of man. Men are building images. They're images today. What are some of the images that the Babylonian system is building around the world?
Buildings.
Yeah, buildings. Buildings. You know, there's a Shah in Dubai that says, I'm committed to have the highest building in the world. If any building gets higher than this building, I will add stories onto it. It's already at 2,600 feet. You know how high 2,600 feet is? You can't fly at 2,600 feet in this zone above Tampa because it's illegal because of the airports and whatnot and the approach of jets and all. They have what's called Class A, Class B, Class C airspace. 2,600 feet is high, man. I used to fly that when I took off from Tampa North and fly over to Clearwater. I'd go to 2,600 feet and I look down and I could see everything. There's a building in Dubai that man has built. You know, there's so much money in Dubai. See, men honor this. They buy, we're going to sell them airplanes. How many know the wealth of the is stored up for the, so we're going to sell airplanes over there. There was actually a Shah that bought an airplane, the newest Boeing, was having a big party on it, and he asked the pilots to start it up, and for some reason it wasn't locked down properly, and it ran off the end of the runway. So he just ordered another one. I mean, some of these aircraft are fitted out where they're $180 million. That's not. I was on an airplane. I flew with a guy from Tampa to Atlanta, and he was telling me he had just gotten back from Dubai. And what he does is he had a company that builds foundations for these skyscrapers in Dubai. He just had gotten back from Dubai. Made a lot of money. He said he went down in the hotel he was staying to buy his wife something before he came back to America because his wife was here in America. He said, I went down to the jewelry store in this hotel. He said the cheapest item in the jewelry store was $50,000. That was the first item that you could buy was $50,000, and it went up from there. See, wealth of the world, people look at this and say, wow, look what man has done. Look at the hanging gardens of Babylon. One of the wonders of the world. Look at Nebuchadnezzar said, yeah, I'm that head of gold. So he listened to some of his Chaldean friends that came by and said, listen, we're tired of these Jewish guys ruling over us. O king, build an image to yourself. Now they knew they wouldn't bow down. These guys knew that Daniel, Shadrack, Meshach, and Abendnego had already committed not to bow. So they knew what was coming down the road. They set them up. How many know the world try to set you up sometimes? Hello? Try to crossfire you. But how many know the world cannot win? Amen? Have you ever read the end of the book?
Yes, and we will.
The kingdoms of this world shall become the kingdoms of our Lord and of His Christ. So, the glory of man is out there today. Man, you can see some pretty glorious things that have been built. I like to study Dubai because it's just interesting to me. I mean, these people buy cars that are $200,000 and $300,000, some over $1 million. This is what they drive on the streets of Dubai. And Dubai is where the wealth of the oil has come. It isn't going to be exciting when Dubai finds out that we're going to be oil independent here in the U.S. under some leadership, hopefully. Some of these rich countries over there aren't going to find the wealth of America is going to support this any longer. In fact, they're already concerned over there if something changes. So I'll tell you what, we live in an exciting time. And alternate energy sources are going to come, so Christians are going to be given that wisdom. So the glory of man. The glory of man. Now, that's the world's glory. The only glory that the world can celebrate is the glory of man. It's the best. Hey, look, see what I've done. See what I've built. Secondly is the glory of God. That's seen in the midst of the fire. You see, the glory of man is seen in the image of gold. That's the glory of man. What does it say in Luke chapter 4, verse 7? Just to go back a minute. Therefore, if you will worship before me, Satan said to Christ, all will be yours. Isn't that interesting? That the world promises that its glory will satisfy you. Interesting, isn't it? Satan came to Jesus in the wilderness and said, if you'll just bow down. It's an interesting scenario. Because he really took Jesus on a high mountain to overlook all the kingdoms of the world. And here's what Satan said to Jesus. I will give you, Jesus, the kingdoms of this world if you just bow down. Now, what had the Father already promised Jesus? That they were going to be given to Jesus, right? See, what Satan will try to do is take even the promise of God and take it out of time in your life and make you worship something you shouldn't to get it. Are you with me?
Something that's yours already.
And it's already ours. See, you know one of the great words in the book of Revelation is the word endurance, patience. It's the most often used word in the book of Revelation is the word endurance. They that endure to the end shall be saved. You need the wisdom of God to wait for the timing of God. Y'all with me? You need the wisdom of God to wait for the timing of God. This is why I taught a couple of weeks ago on the sevenfold Spirit of God. We need the sevenfold Spirit of God today. Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the spirit of counsel, the spirit of might, the spirit of revelation, the spirit of fear of the Lord, the knowledge. The sevenfold Spirit of the Lord is necessary for the church today. We've got to have that to operate in this season. I pray for it every day. God, give me, and I receive it. I receive the sevenfold Spirit of God. I remember we went through that declaration here a couple of weeks ago. Hey, you folks are submitted to a lot of good things here. You get this stuff, you know what? It'll change your life. So the glory of man requires that you bow down to the image. And the promise of the image is you will get full satisfaction if you do. Well, it's a lie. It's a lie. I like what Jesus said to Satan. Thou shalt worship what? The Lord thy God, and him only shall you serve. Say worship. Say serve. What you worship, you serve. Now, what do you worship? Watch this. You worship what you love. Say, my worship comes out of my love. Jesus said it twice in the New Testament. This is the greatest commandment. Worship what? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind. That covers the three parts of man. Heart is the spirit of man. Soul is our mind, emotions, will, imagination, conscience. That's the soul part of man. And then the body, right? The mind is part of the body. So he covers it all. He said, worship God with everything you've got. Worship God with all that you are. Love Him, I mean. First of all, love Him. That's why the single most important thing for you is learning to receive God's love and to give God's love. Nothing more important than that. Your love receiver from God is important. If you don't know how to receive God's love, you can't experience it. So love the Lord your God. Then out of that love is going to come your worship. And then out of your worship is going to come your service. So you become a slave to whatever you... I had a Corvette, man. Come on. I've had 2 Corvettes in my life. Now, you don't park a Corvette in a normal parking spot. If you're smart, you won't park close. You know why? Because Corvettes are made of fiberglass. And if a person next to you opens the door on the blooming thing, what's going to happen? It's going to put a piece of it out. So you watch Corvette owners. How many times have you parked close to a Corvette? Check it out. So I had this Corvette, and I was driving down over in 580 one day, and I saw this Corvette sitting out. It looked beautiful. Well, I stopped by, and there were only 12,000 miles on it. A guy had bought it as an investment. Well, he was a policeman, and he died. I didn't get all the details on how he died. He was a young man. I think he died physically from some kind of disease, heart attack or something. And his wife was selling this Corvette. So I went and bought it. I had the cash at the time, so I just paid cash for it. And I took it home, put it in my garage, and I began to worship it. Now that's the problem with owning a beautiful Corvette. It tempts you to worship it. And in the worship of my Corvette, I would do a lot to protect it and think about it and guard it and make sure it was okay. You know what? It became obsessive, a little bit obsessive to me. So one day this guy knocks on the door of our condominium. We lived in Oldsmore at the time. And he knocks on the door of our condominium. Strange guy. I mean, he comes by and he says, I might buy one of these, and I just wanted to see kind of what it looked like. I said, oh, okay. And he says, I noticed you have a Corvette in your garage. I said, yeah, I have a Corvette. It's my Corvette. I love it. He said, man, it looks nice. He said, really looks nice. He said, I'm actually on my way down to the Corvette shop. He says, I'm going down to buy a Corvette. He said, I know it's strange. He said, can I look at your He says, I love the condominium. He said, now, is there a chance that I can drive your Corvette? That was my first mistake. So he got in my Corvette, backed it out of the garage, drove around, and it just ran. You know, for the year of that Corvette, it ran so beautiful because it was like new. Been kept in the garage all this time in Florida. He came back and made me an offer on my Corvette that I couldn't turn down. I'd only had it for a month or two. Man, I was cruising down at the beach and I was enjoying my Corvette and everything else, you know, worshiping it a little bit. And I went back in the house and my wife said, honey, did you hear what that man just offered for your Corvette? First of all, I should have known better when I called my wife and told her I bought a Corvette. I pulled it in the garage. She came out and said, honey, it's only got 2 seats. There's 4 of us in this family. I guess she thought a Corvette was a minivan or something. So guess what I did that day? I sold my Corvette. But I thought later, well, I made $3,000 in a couple of weeks. I mean, just, you know, I'm not selling cars, but I couldn't resist the guy's offer. But it was God's way of getting this thing out of my garage. Because I think it was already becoming a little bit of a problem in my heart. You know what I'm talking about? You know, anything that competes with God in our heart, I think God begins to put in the fire. I think He starts burning it out of us. Amen? And there's good reason. Because eventually all these things in this world are going to what? Burn up. Everything around you is going to be dissolved. That's what Peter said. Elements shall melt with a fervent heat. So let's focus on things that are what? Eternal. Amen? Now, I don't think God's against you having a Corvette. Maybe you can own one and it doesn't own you. I don't know. There are probably guys that buy them that park them anywhere and don't care. But I just know my heart. I've got to be careful what I set my heart on. Amen? Because what I love, I worship, and what I worship, I serve. And I'm not going to serve my Corvette. It's a terrible master. How many know any automobile is a terrible thing to serve? It's going to let you down sooner or later, or somebody's going to run into it. I had another Corvette. I don't know why I'm telling my Corvette stories, because I guess it's the fire that God used. I had a young man come up and live with us up in Longmont when we were in Colorado, and I had bought a 65 Roadster. Now, anybody that knows Corvettes knows that 65 Roadsters with the removable tops, that's an automobile. 300 watt horsepower, real V8, no garbage on it. 65 Corvette. I love that car. So Clay Jones came up, and he was a young man that I was taking in our ministry, and I was really mentoring him, raising him up as a minister, and he's in the ministry today. And he traveled with me for several years, and all over the world, really. And he had just moved up to Longmont, and boy, this was a pristine car like the other Corvette I had. And he asked me one Saturday night, he said, Jerry, can I take it downtown? I just want to drag Maine a little bit. Longmont was kind of a little city in Colorado, and the big thing in those days was dragging Maine. Remember those days? Anybody that old? And I said, yeah. I said, just be careful with it, Clay. You know, he's a trustworthy young man. So I'm sleeping in my bed, and about midnight he comes in the bedroom, and he's just shaking his head, and I knew what happened. He got in a little bit of a race and crashed it. So that's my experience with my two Corvettes. Now, I know that was great, deep spiritual knowledge, but I'm just telling you, God wants your heart. The single most significant thing about Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abendnego is God had their hearts. And when God has your heart, everything else in your life will be managed properly. I want to finish up so I got a short video I want to show you real quickly. The glory of God is seen in the midst of the fire. We're going to have a remnant that have already gone through the fire, that know how to handle the fire, that have come out of the fire, that have been trained in the fire, whose bondages have been burned off by the fire. And I've had 53 years of this. Training for reigning. How many know it's painful sometimes? I've had 53 years of it, but out of it I believe with all my heart that God has single focused me now on the kingdom. I live the kingdom. I eat the kingdom. I sleep the kingdom. I study the kingdom. I love it. Because I see it's the main thing. It's the main event. It's the thing that Jesus talked about. It's the end of this age. This kingdom shall never end. We are already in the kingdom.
Yes, we are.
This is a kingdom hour on the earth. And I say prophetically that the church is going to transition from grace to kingdom.
Yes.
It needs to. We got sloppy grace going out there. Kingdom means absolute rulership of the king. Get me worked up this morning. Kingdom means submission to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Say, I am a king and a priest unto my God. God has given me a kingdom over which I rule on this earth, over which He rules. He is the King of Kings, and that's you. That's not heads of nations, that's you. He has made us, twice in Revelation, a kingdom of kings and priests unto our God. So that's the story. Finally, the promotion. The promotion. Look at Daniel chapter 3, verse 29. I love this. And therefore I make a decree. See, when the king saw what happened, he made a decree. that every people, nation, and language would speak anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be cut to pieces, and their houses shall be made a dunghill, because there is no other God that can deliver as this sort. Our testimony to the world, watch this, is how we live through the fire. Now, we have a couple of instances of this that I think are very, very good. One is Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow just shined again. His testimony just keeps rising back up. He's gone with his baseball team, and somebody passed out in the crowd, and he stopped, literally stopped what he was doing, and he went and assisted this person. And it was all over the news that he cared more about this person than he did about baseball. They couldn't believe it, that a baseball player would stop and help somebody in the crowd who had passed out. I guess they ended up going to the hospital. They were okay. It was some kind of epileptic attack or something. But it showed him there kneeling down in the stands with this person that needed help. What's really important, right? Now, Tim Tebow's been through the fire, man. He's been handed around all these so-called opportunities to play quarterback on these teams and played good with the Broncos and all, but for some reason, it didn't work out. But you know what? His heart has come through in the right place. Yeah. Sons of Philippine missionaries. He was raised in the Philippines. The son of missionaries who learned their real priorities in life isn't money, isn't fame. It's in honoring God. Now, another guy I really like is Tony Dungy. Tony recently lost a son through suicide. This became a tremendous testimony to all the athletics. You see Tony once in a while on NFL football. He's part of that group that meets during halftime, and Tony's been raised up. God's honored him. God's given him a place of honor in one of the great idols of America. Is football, right? Let's admit it. I have to be careful about that myself. I do tape my games on the Buccaneers. I want to watch them anyway, but I want to skip through all the ads, so I don't watch it live. You know, anybody else do that? Yeah, you do that, Tony? I just don't have time for all those ads, so I can watch the game in like about an hour and 10 minutes instead of 2 hours. And I like football. So we pull up to Grace Family Church, my family and I, and there are 4 of us, and we park our car kind of, if you go to Grace, you've got to park way out there now because it's a lot of people. So they have these golf carts, and these aren't normal golf carts. They have like 4 seats in them. You know, they kind of transport people kind of golf carts. So we pull out there, way out there in the parking lot, and here comes the golf cart to pull up next to us to pick us up. And guess who's driving the golf cart? Tony Dungy. Tony volunteered at Grace Family Church to drive the golf cart to pick people up in the parking lot. We couldn't believe it. You know, I'm sitting there talking to Tony Dungy all the way back there. See, it shows a heart in the right place, a heart of servitude. Who's greatest in the kingdom? He that is servant of all. See, we think greatest in the kingdom is the head of the company. The greatest in the kingdom is he that's servant of all. Jesus taught us that. So if you want to be greatest, serve everybody. Somebody asked me the other day, how have you sustained so many years of ministry? You know what I told them? I really believe the reason we have been able to sustain so long, so well, and God always took care of us, is we worked with the homeless so many years. 7 years, every Saturday, never got paid a dime for this. I drove 100 miles with our team from Cameron Park to San Francisco, and we met churches there from all over Northern California. We fed the homeless. We served the homeless. We got a ship for the homeless. We gave out sleeping bags. We gave out food every weekend. The NBC station gave us weekly coverage, and they hated the Christian community. They loved the gays. They were totally homosexual, totally liberal. If you know anything about NBC, the biggest station in Northern California. But why did God give us favor? Don't you like the word favor? Yeah. Why did God give us favor? Because the head commentator for NBC, whose name is Russ Coughlin, was on every night. Everybody in Northern California, in fact, all of California knew Russ. He'd been on for 30 years. He gave a little commentary at the end of each news broadcast, and most people watched NBC News. He tripped over a homeless man going into the studio one day to do his program, and he told the lady at the front desk, how come nobody in this city is helping the homeless? Well, guess what? We notified the station that week because we were giving out 1,000 sleeping bags. Russ Coughlin came down to the street with an NBC camera setup, and they wanted to cover every one of our outreaches. I told him he don't need to do that. He says, we want to promote you. You're the only person in this city. This is back in 1985. Nobody was helping the homeless in those days. God told us through Mom Taylor to go out and help the homeless. Mom Taylor was on my television program, and she prophesied over me and said, you're going to be on the streets of San Francisco in 2 weeks helping the homeless. And I said, no, I'm not. I don't have time, and I'm not even interested. Well, who's on the streets in 2 weeks? Helping the homeless. See, when you serve people, it's not the head of a big organization, somebody that thinks they're somebody. It's the people that bow down to serve the homeless, the hurting, the broken. Those are the people that God will take care of. I'm going to finish with this. I believe, I want to show this video on the fire in just a minute if you get ready, Carol. I just got a 3-minute clip that I think you'll enjoy as we close the teaching today on this part, and then we're going into the real exciting part with Gordon, but just don't hit it yet. Okay, is it working? Looks like I may have to help him come set that up. But I believe God will give you favor. If you read Isaiah 58, there are 9 blessings that come to you if you help the needy and the homeless. 9 blessings. Your light will not go out in darkness. Your heart will be like a watered garden. Ooh, don't you like that? Your restoration will speedily come forth. You know who God's going to pay back? Everybody that helps people. You guys go over to the Philippines. You're doing it over there. We're going to help you again in January. I'm excited. Let's go out and help the people out there that need help. Amen? It's time. It's time. Now, this is a little bit of a cut on out of the movie on the fiery furnace guys, and I think you'll really enjoy this.
I will make them bow.
With our heart, we follow you. We seek your presence. With all our heart, we follow you. We seek your presence.
When we wish to bend something that is hard and unyielding, what do we do with it? We put it into the fire. Majesty, take him.
Hear you, and we seek your presence.
Burn them! Majesty, no! Burn them! 1, 2! Bring oil! Come! Fire! Bring me fire!
Hear my cry. Cords of death entangle me. The anguish of the grave consumes me. Do not ignore my tears. I am overcome by sorrow. I call upon the name of the Lord. Lord, save
My enemies will be daunted. They will turn back in shame. Why do they not burn?
people of Judah, rise! God is with us! He's with us! God is with us.